Oh, someone naming no names has been telling porkies. This is today's Arsenal news show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal news show. Joining every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routine. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've had a really good start and now end to your weeks. It's Friday. It's press conference day, but it is the end of the week, which is always welcome as we head into the weekend. Arsenal taking on Sunderland in the Premier League at a 3 o'clock kickoff at the Emirates tomorrow. Of course, that means there's no televised UK legally televised showing of the game. So if you want to stay up to date with the game, of course, I'll be there providing you updates from the Emirates on our Football.London live blog, so you can check that out and keep up to date with everything that's going on in the game, of course. But let's say good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good and well. Maximius, Black Shy, Matt G, Martin, Barry, Ken, Canoe, Mr. Knowledge, John, Paul. We've got Steve and Glenn. We've got Boadiseth. We've got Arasilki, Beanie Bun, Martin and Mohammed. Mike, we've got Simple Unity and Anupla. Thank you so much to you all for tuning in. Really appreciate you all being here. And thank you for listening. If you could drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff, would greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. So let's jump into today's slide, shall we? We begin with yesterday's training session. And we're looking at a number of absences so far. Jurrien Timber was not seen in training. He's kind of the big one, if you like, the big omission from the game against Chelsea. There's no Jurrien Timber spotted. Hopefully it's just precautionary. Hopefully it's just further rest from the Chelsea game. Of course, Ben White is available, can play. So we do have plenty of depth if indeed Jurrien Timber is unable to feature this weekend for whatever reason, but we will find out a little bit later on regarding his availability. Saka, Ødegaard and Daumann are the ones that we know are obviously out at the moment, so they're not part of main training still right now. The hope is that Daumann will return soon. The hope is that Saka and Ødegaard will return soon as well. Of course, I brought you the news that the Ødegaard injury is pretty minor. He's hoping that he'll be back soon, but still not back in training as of yet. But Arteta will obviously say today that they've got another session. Well, actually, to be fair, they may have had all of their sessions by the time that we speak to him this afternoon. So with the game tomorrow, he doesn't really have anywhere to hide when it comes to the old we'll have one more training session type answer to the team news. So that's certainly one to look out for as well, and one to keep an eye on ahead of the weekend. Yesterday's show, I told you I was going to be doing a couple of pieces. I had a rare day of just kind of working from home, and usually what happens is I end up writing these kind of discussion lines around topics that everyone's talking about at the moment. And one of the big kind of topics at the moment is the rage bait machine, which is in full flow. I don't think there's any doubt or question marks about what the rage bait machine is. If you're an Arsenal fan, you know all about it because it's winding or attempting to wind up at least pretty much everybody right now. And it's this idea that Arsenal are probably the best version of themselves that they've ever been. I mean, I'll read you just this one paragraph from the article that I wrote yesterday. If you want to read the full thing, you can on the Football.London website. But just one paragraph from that piece gives you a little bit of perspective about how ironic it is that right now the noise around Arsenal has never been this loud. So for the record, having watched Arsenal for the majority of the 30-plus years of existence, it's been worse than this, much worse. Finishing 8th twice, getting knocked out by Unai Emery's Villarreal in a European Cup semi-final, Skodra Mustafi, Sebastian Squillaci, an away record against the Big Six, which was frankly laughable, Kim Kallstrom's medical, Birmingham City, misidentification, Yaya Sanogo, the trophy drought, Yanam Villa, you spend, we spend, and smoking in the showers. All of which, of course, didn't get anywhere near as much publicity, press, or comment as what Arsenal are doing right now. And all that Arsenal are doing right now is scoring a couple of corners and sitting at top of the Premier League table. So what does that tell us? What does it tell us about people's absorption and reaction to Arsenal being the best version of themselves that we have seen over the past, 18 years at least. You could argue 20, but 20 years ago, Arsenal reached the Champions League final. So I'm remiss to go that far back. But certainly in the last 18 years, this is the most Arsenal have been spoken about in a negative way. But it's probably the most Arsenal have been spoken about. It's probably the best Arsenal have been in that time as well. So isn't that telling? Isn't it telling that Arsenal being the best version of themselves over the last 18 years has brought about the greatest amount of scrutiny, criticism, noise, judgment that we have ever seen? So that is very, very, very interesting indeed, isn't it? And I think it's quite telling. And yeah, if you want to read the full piece, which kind of goes into some of the examples, and thank you so many of you that sent in your examples. We included plenty of them. You know, Paul Scholes, Peter Schmeichel, I was reminded of as well, his comments at Anfield where he said that he's never, in fact, I'll get you the exact quote because it's in the piece, but the quote that Peter Schmeichel came out with was, I mean, when you think about the context of it, you know, he said he'd never, ever wanted a team. I've never in my life ever wanted a team to win a game of football more than Liverpool today. Arsenal bring an ugly brand of football to our game. Bear in mind that Arsenal had higher XG in that game and had more shots than Liverpool in that game. Just bear that in mind when you consider what was on display at Anfield that day. They were the better team in the first half. Liverpool certainly the better team in the second and won it, ironically, because of a set piece. But yeah, there was that. There was the Paul Scholes stuff. There was the Gary Neville, Martinelli comments. There's the kind of the worst team to win the league agenda that's going on at the moment. There's Tony Adams talking about Odegaard. And one thing I will tell you as well is that the reports around that rift between Arteta and Odegaard, I'm happy to tell you, is absolute rubbish. That also features. And it's that as well. It's just claims of rifts and breakups and issues and problems that don't exist. So go and check it out. If you just go type in Tom Canton and Football London, you'll be able to go onto my profile, and two of the articles are there. So give them a read. The second article, which I told you I was going to be doing, was on those Pep Guardiola comments. So Pep Guardiola a couple of days ago said, I'm a little bit sad and upset because our net spend is in the past 5 years, we are 7th in the Premier League. So I want to be the first. So I don't understand why the club has not spent more money. So I'm a little bit grumpy with them. But to be in that position, like we were in the past, was because we spent a lot. And now the other 6 teams have to win the Premier League and the Champions League and the FA Cups because they have spent more in the past 5 years. That is a fact. It is not an opinion. You can say an opinion, for example, you played good or bad against Spurs, so we can agree or disagree. But that is facts. So good luck to the 6 teams in front of us in the net spend for the last 5 years. Let's go. I am waiting. Now, the BBC's calculations suggest that Pep Guardiola was wrong, and they're actually the 6th highest net spending team over the last 5 years, above Nottingham Forest by about 1.7 million. Their net spend, according to the BBC's data that they've used, suggests their net spend is £324.7 million. Arsenal's, on the other hand, is £610.1 million. So Arsenal have a net spend which is nearly 300 million greater over the last 5 years than City. And you might think, that's quite a significant gap. And you'd be right. It is quite a significant gap. But there is a huge element to this story that is just not spoken about. So to give you a little bit of an example as to why that gap exists, and you probably have worked out why that gap exists, as great that it is. And the simple fact is that City have been better at selling than Arsenal have. City have been better at selling players and getting money for their players than Arsenal have. Again, you can read this piece in detail if you would like to, with all the data on the website. So since Arteta's appointment in December of 2019, Manchester City have spent £1.109 billion on players. Now, despite what some people may tell you, do you remember those people that tell you Arteta spent £1 billion? Well, he's not spent £1 billion on players. So, you know, there's that in terms of transfer fees. So he spent £944.4 million on players, according to Transfermarkt, since December 2019. So he's spent in the same time frame less on players overall, but the net spend is obviously where the difference is. So in that time frame, Arsenal have made just £227 million from sales. When you compare that to City, City have made £754.1 million from player sales. Huge difference between the two clubs. The bigger aspect of that, though, I think, is actually on the youth side of things. Arsenal, of that £227 million that Arsenal have made from sales, only £17 million has been made from their under 21s. Look at the City side of things. City, of that 754.1 million, 141.24 million pounds has been made. As opposed to that, we're talking about potentially like 600-700% greater in sales from the under 21 squad over that 5 and a bit year period compared to Arsenal. So this is why the net spend numbers are so different between the two. Why the net spend is so great. And selling has been a bit of Arsenal's kind of, it's been a problem for Arsenal. We all know that. It's something that needs to change. It's been affected by the previous recruitment mistakes that were made years and years and years ago. And we obviously terminated a lot of contracts during the pandemic as well. And that all counts. But Pep is obviously omitting some quite big elements from the conversation. If you think about what Arsenal's spending is, so that £944.4 million that has been spent, that doesn't include the option on Hincapié, by the way. That will take it to £990 million in the summer of 2026, but we're not there yet. That money has not been outlaid yet. So £944 million as things stand. And the element that is that whole squad, right? The whole squad that we have right now, there are only 3 players that are in this current title-chasing squad that were there before Mikel Arteta took over. William Saliba, Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli. 3 players, all of which were under the age of 20 when Mikel Arteta took over. So since that time in December 2019, Arsenal's squad has been entirely revamped, overhauled, rebuilt, built around those 3 talents. That's what that has happened. Those 3 talents, Martinelli, Saliba, Saka, have been built around with the recruitment over these 5 and a bit years. Now compare that instead to Manchester City when Pep Guardiola arrived. So when Pep Guardiola arrived at Manchester City in 2016, immediately they started spending big money. John Stones, Leroy Sané, Ilkay Gundogan, Claudio Bravo, Nolito, they all came in during that first summer that Guardiola took over, and they won nothing. They won nothing that season. It was the first time in Pep Guardiola's managerial career that he had won nothing as a manager in a single season at the senior level. First time it ever happened. However, naturally, more money was then spent. In 2017, they brought in Benjamin Mendy, Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, Edison, Danilo, and during the January window, Aymeric Laporte, of course, came in, and City went on to win the title with 100 points and a record-breaking season. And if you think about those squads with that quality that came in, huge amount of quality, but those players on their own aren't necessarily going to take you to a 100-point total during your second season as manager of that club. Something must have been there before Pep Guardiola arrived. And we know that it was because City, unlike Arsenal, had won titles in the years building up to Pep Guardiola's appointment as manager. They'd won titles under Roberto Mancini and they'd won titles under Manuel Pellegrini. And that meant that there must have been a squad in place already that was more than capable of challenging for titles. And so that's why that 2017-18 team that won the league with 100 points already in it had players not signed by Pep Guardiola, including Vincent Kompany, Raheem Sterling, Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, Fernandinho, Nicolas Otamendi, Yaya Toure, and even a very young Phil Foden who made 5 league appearances that season as well. So that's the bedrock of that success that City had with Pep on top of the spending that came in immediately. So we can talk about the spending on players since Arteta's appointment, but we're going back to 2016 and all those players that we talked about in those 2 summers on top of the players that already existed there. But do you know what's really good about this? Is I've not even got to the good bit. I've not even got to the £808 million that Pep Guardiola is not talking to us about. So let's talk about that, shall we? And I should say, that Arsenal are looking to improve on selling. We know that. We know the academy is going to get a huge, huge revamp. The change in the guard, Per Mertesacker is leaving in the summer. He's moving on. Arsenal already looking to improve the ranks with quality. They've signed Jaden Dixon and Evan Mooney this January. They've already signed up players like Victor Guner and, of course, the two Ecuadorian twins, Holger and Edwin Quintero. They're expected to join when they turn 18. There's a big push to improve Arsenal's youth sort of thing. So the club are acting on this. They are looking to improve that element of the club. They see it as an area of improvement, of needing development, and that's what we're seeing. But let's get on to the big difference between Arsenal and City. That despite that massive gap, so there's about, what did we say? There's a gap of like £500 million in difference in net spend over those seasons, right? Since Mikel Arteta and since Pep Guardiola took over, there's a huge difference in that spending in terms of net spend. City have still spent more gross on players, but in terms of net spend, Arsenal are trailing behind by about 500 million or so between the two clubs. So let's have a quick look at the thing that is never talked about. Can you guess what it is yet? Can you guess what it is? Bear in mind, I've not even talked about the elephant in the room in the entirety of this piece, and I'm not even going to talk about the elephant in the room during this, and you sure know what that elephant in the room is. I'm not even going to mention it because I don't need to. I don't need to mention that to make this point. Wages. Wages are the big difference between the two clubs. Now, wages are really difficult to get a grip on. You have to go back and look at club accounts over the last X number of seasons, and you obviously can't always get that data. Now, I reached out to Deloitte, of course, and Deloitte very thankfully provided me the data from their annual review of football finance, which gives me all of the data I need over the last 10 seasons. 10 for City, 9 for Arsenal. We don't yet have Arsenal's 24-25 numbers until they are published. We don't have them. And so we were able, from 2015-16 to 23-24, to look at the wage expenditure of each club. And let me tell you, there is a chasm between these two clubs. So from 2015-16 to 23-24, Arsenal, in wages, have spent £2.124 billion on player wages over those 9 seasons on players. 2.124 billion. A lot of money. Certainly a lot more in recent seasons as well. Manchester City in that time have spent £2.932 billion on wages. That is £808 million more on wages than Arsenal have. From 2015-16, the season just before Pep took over, to 23-24, the last season that we have where both clubs' data is available to us right now until those Arsenal numbers are published in hopefully very soon. And when they are published, of course, we'll do a quick comparison as well. I'll have the data for City for 24-25. We don't have it for Arsenal yet, but as soon as we get that data, we'll do another comparison. So the key part here, though, is you're probably thinking, well, that's, of course, a long time before Mikel Arteta took over, and you'd be right. So let's have a quick look at the seasons, the full seasons that we have for Mikel Arteta at Arsenal compared to City. So from 2020-21 to 23-24, so that's 2021, 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24. So 4 full seasons of Arteta's tenure at Arsenal compared to the same 4 seasons with Manchester City. So the outlay on wages during that 2020-21 season, Arteta's first full season, Arsenal spent £244.478 million on wages. City in the same season, 354.689 in that single season. The first full season Arteta was in charge. That shows you the disparity between wage brackets of those two clubs. But if you have a look at the course of those 4 seasons, the 4 full seasons that we have available to us, from 2020-21 to 2023-24, those data shows us that we've got expenditure of £1.02 billion on wages for Arsenal. City, £1.544 billion in wages. That is a difference of £524 million on player wages. Bear in mind, that's before Erling Haaland's contract comes into play. If you do any digging and reading into how much Erling Haaland is being paid right now by Manchester City, can you imagine the difference in the two wage brackets when we start to factor that in and contracts like that. That's before that contract. That's before that. So just think what the new one, not the first one he signed when he first joined, this new 8-year, 10-year contract or whatever it is he signed. Just think about what that is going to have, the impact that is going to make on this team. That is staggering. So the next time, and I sincerely hope the next time there is an opportunity that Guardiola starts talking about net spend, starts talking about how much money his team have spent compared to his rivals. I sincerely hope that there is an effort made to talk about the big, unassuming, unspoken number that is there. And again, I've not mentioned the elephant in the room once in this entire conversation. I want to keep it to what we can talk about. I want to keep it to what we're talking about just based on what we know, 100% facts, as Guardiola says. Really, really interesting data. So thank you to Deloitte who provided the data for me at such short notice as well. I wasn't even planning on doing the piece yesterday, but they managed to turn around the data so quickly that we were able to get hold of it. Mikel Arteta faces his media this afternoon, and looking forward, of course, to hearing from the manager, of course, on an update on the injuries to the players, and I'm curious to see what he thinks about a number of topics, of course, going on and talking about at the moment. So you'll be able to follow all the updates in the press conference on the Football.London website, of course. You can go to the live press conference blog that runs from about an hour before it starts. And I'll be tweeting out, of course, on the timeline as well. So go and check it out. Well, let's go to part 2, your questions and more, right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of today's show. We'll be jumping into the chat box and tackling some of your questions. So if you've indeed got any questions, now is the time to ask them. I forgot to take a drink during that break. I always do that. Right, let's go. Let's go to Oizen says, hey, yo, TGT, your exclusion of Mikel Merino makes your thumbnail incorrect because it's 5 players and not 4, which means this live is not based on facts. Merino is the Arsenal player. You're right. I should change it. I'll change it to 5. Don't worry. I'll change it to 5 afterwards. We can make it even more impactful. Locked by Joey says, and now he's also been crying about Guerhi not being eligible to play in the Carabao Cup. And I can tell you that the EFL are not going to change their rules. They are not going to change their rules for Manchester City. Guerhi will not be available to play for Manchester City in the League Cup final. Not changing the rules. As far as we're aware, the EFL have said, no, not happening. 0. John says, when Arsenal play City, should they employ a new 1-1-5 formation and then add a new first throwing coach on top of that as well? It would leave us at a bit of a disadvantage, wouldn't it? Like we only got 7 players on the pitch. We need 3 more. Squeezy Cake says, Timber, Rice, Havertz renewals on the table or what? Certainly in the works is my understanding on that Timber, Rice and Havertz are certainly players the club are looking to renew. So, yes, hopefully in the coming months, we will get news on that front. They may wait until the end of the season and sort those more so in the summer. I guess we'll wait and see. But, yeah, they are players that the club wants to renew. David Raya, I think, as well, even though he's had an improvement in his wages, there may even be discussions over a new contract as well. Gabriel Jesus is a player they still need to consider. Also, Daniel says, did you see LinkedIn Liam Rossignol moaning about Arsenal's warming up in the Chelsea half, embarrassing sour grapes from the LinkedIn Liam? Yes, I did. And yeah, it's just sad, isn't it, really? It's just being a bad loser. Grow up, man. Grow up. It happens in every single game. If you go to any Arsenal game, it happens in every single game. It's just so sad. Cannibal says, blown away, Tom. Great work. Question, I don't do social media outside of YouTube. What is the Odegaard story? He and the boss have fallen out. So there was a claim we talked about yesterday. The report came from a website called Fishahez. You've probably heard of it. It is notoriously quite bad for reporting just news that isn't real. And this is yet another one of those examples that isn't real. Did some digging around the story just to cover my own back, basically. And yeah, it's rubbish. Peter Cook says, hey, Tom, do you have the average cost per player data? Be good to see what Arteta is like compared to Pep. No, but I guess you would just kind of divide it, wouldn't you, between the number of players signed across the expenditure of those players, wouldn't you? But you'd have to, depends what ones you include. Do you include free signings? Do you include loans? Like, how would you do it? I guess it depends on the parameters. But yeah, and obviously you'd think that Arsenal would have had to sign more players as well, because they've had to rebuild basically the entire squad, whereas Pep over that same time frame is not doing that. So I guess it would probably be less, but maybe I'm wrong. Naughty says, not a question, but saw you yesterday out on your run in the rain in all your Arsenal gear. Keep up the effort. Thanks, mate. I do my best. I keep trying. Don't know how to feel about that. Chris says it's also no coincidence that the two Champions League Pep won at Barca or against Man United that paid them too much respect. Pep couldn't outsmart other top managers in the Champions League. Yeah, Chris, I really sincerely feel as though that the achievements of Pep, I'm not going to argue about. And this isn't a slam dunk on Pep. I appreciate Pep as a manager. I think for me, he's probably my favorite manager of the last 10, 15, 20 years. I have no problem. I think the style of football, the Cruyffian law around Pep, I love it. But doesn't mean that I'm not going to, see what he says and pull any punches when it comes to kind of assessing what he's talking about in regards to Arsenal. Rory says, Tom, why does Arsenal not show Mikel's press conference live on the Arsenal website? I have seen a few before. Yeah, they don't do it live anymore. They used to do it. The honest answer is because it's in case something's said, I guess. So, a number of times Arteta has said some things which aren't great, particularly, I'm not going to, because they're quite triggering, but it's just something that he's had to get kind of a handle on, using some similes or metaphors which aren't politically correct, let's say. So it's in case some of that happens. It's ironically, nothing's actually happened since they've gone from live press conferences to as live press conferences. So and it's not a secret either, because you can watch it back where they say we're going to do the as live section. So it's as live, it's not actually live. So that's why. Again, it says, are the club being more cautious with players carrying minor injuries than previous seasons, given the squad depth? It feels like in previous seasons, some of the players would have played in spite of that. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you are absolutely spot on. 100%. Sean says, is there friction between Odegaard and Arteta? No, there's not. It's a fake story. John says, I have a lot of respect for Pep after his comments on the world's danger areas. Good on him. Yeah, look, I think we talked about them yesterday. Some things, absolutely, I think Pep speaks very well on. When we're talking about finances, not as much. Aberley says, Rafinha seems to me like he's got a raging case of imposter syndrome, lashing out like a man who knows he's been promoted way above his level. Ken says, thoughts on the Waneri tackle on Kamara? Potential red card. People were yelling. It's a red card. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible tackle. It's a learning curve. He got very lucky not to be sent off. It's a terrible challenge. And in the Premier League, I think VAR probably would have sent him off. So, yeah, Kenny was very lucky. Tom says, how many Arsenal players do you think would go to the World Cup if picked? Good question. This is going to test my knowledge of how many teams have actually qualified. So David Raya, yes. Kepa, no. Saliba, yes. Mosquera, maybe. Genuinely, there is a chance, but they've got quite a lot of defenders, so maybe not. He's been playing in the under-21s. He's not made his senior Spain debut yet, so he may not, but I doubt it. Ben White, again, don't think so. So we're still on 2. Nkapie, yes. Gabriel, yes. Timber, yes. Calafiori, yes. Italy qualified, right? Did Italy qualify? World Cup groups. Tables. So, no, that's the wrong World Cup. That's the Cricket World Cup. What are the World Cup groups? I need to see what the groups are. Standings. So Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, and then one of Denmark, I think that's Macedonia, Czech Republic, Ireland, Canada, and then one of Italy. I've got a playoff round, so you'd think they would get through that. Qatar, Switzerland, Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, Scotland, USA, Paraguay, Australia, and then one of Turkey, Slovakia, Kosovo, and Romania, I think. Germany, Curacao, Cote d'Ivoire, Ecuador, Netherlands, Japan, and then one of Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, Albania. Tunisia, another, Belgium, Egypt, Iran, New Zealand, Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, France, Senegal, one of Bolivia, Suriname, and Iraq, I think. I think SUR is Suriname, but I might be wrong. Norway, and then Group J, Argentina, Algeria, Austria, Jordan. Group K, Portugal. How many teams are in this World Cup? Goodness, too many. Uzbekistan, Colombia, England, Croatia, Ghana, Panama. So I've got to try and remember all those now. Lewis Skelly, I don't think so now. Odegaard, yes. Norgard, I think so. I think Norgard would get called up for the Denmark squad if Denmark qualify. They've still got to qualify though at this stage. Zubimendi, yes. Rice, yes. Saka, yes. Jesus, maybe. Again, not sure. Eza, maybe. Not sure. Martinelli, I think so. Gyökeres, if Sweden qualify. Trossard, yes. Madueke, yes. I think Madueke will get called up. And Havertz, yes, 100%. So quite a few. But there's still a fair number that may not make it just yet. Viminaturo says the last time Italy qualified for the World Cup was in 2014. The last time they got out of the group stage was in 2006 when they won, which is crazy. What a trivial stat. Trivia stat, I should say, not trivial, trivia. Derek says, hi, mate. Big opportunity Saturday. I have a horrible feeling. Could be frustrating 1-1. 9 points, put serious pressure on. Also, do you think City will change their game, or rather will change the City Prem game will change to Sunday, 19th of April? Probably, but I'm not going to tell you that definitely is, because I don't want you to book tickets and it not be it not happen. Gabby says, hi Tom, my dad's got Arsenal tickets for this Saturday but taking his sister instead, but I'm glad for her to go as it's her first time at the men's game. Gabe, you've got to be pleased about that. You've got to be pleased. You've got to be humble about it. N1 says, not sure if this has been asked, Tom, but how significant could the period in the season be if Arsenal also draw City in the Champions League? Could be 4 games against City in quick succession. Premier League, Champions League, Premier League. I think the period is just going to be what it is, right? It's just what happens. You get into these big competitions, you have these games fall at certain points, you're going to be playing them a lot. So it's not even confirmed we play City in the Champions League bracket. We might not be on their bracket. There's a 50-50 chance we'll be in their bracket, and then both teams have got to get through. So don't just assume that we're going to be getting through. Let's scroll up a little bit because I think I missed some comments earlier on. Arthur says, Tom, can you please explain why Guehi is not allowed to play, but Semenyo is allowed to play? Yes, so the rules are, if you sign a player in the January window before the semi-finals of the competition, they can play in the competition. But if you sign a player that's already played in the competition after the semi-final first leg, as they did with Guehi, they are cup-tied. So Semenyo came in before the first leg of the semi-final. Despite playing for Bournemouth, you're allowed to play. Guehi came in after the first leg of the semi-final, so he is cup-tied. That's how it works. Derek says, hi mate, big opportunity Saturday. Have a horrible feeling it could be a frustrating 1-1, but 9 points will put serious pressure on them. I think we've kind of touched on that, maybe put it in twice. King says, after all the success they have had, I'd expect them to pay higher wages over that time. Prize monies also must have helped somewhat. Yeah, sure, but it's still over. That's not the debate. The debate is that Pep's claiming that these clubs have spent way more on players than he has. So it doesn't matter what the context is. It doesn't matter if it's more acceptable or more understandable that they've spent more money. That's not the debate. The debate is Pep claiming that these clubs have spent more on players than he has when they haven't, because Man City have spent far more on wages. Gita says, are the club being more cautious with players carrying minor injuries than previous seasons? And I think we touched on that one as well. So yeah, I think we'll scroll back down because I think I'm going over old ground. Chris says, that was one of my reasons for not bowing down to Pep. Rijkaard built that great Barca side. Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol, Eto'o, Ronaldinho, Deco, etc. Pep failed to give Rijkaard any credit. Again, I recommend highly that you watch the Barcelona documentary, because everything you said there, it misses so much context of the actual situation. So again, go watch the Barcelona documentary. Graham Hunter made it. It's brilliant. it tells you and shows you why that opinion about Pep is just so wide of the mark in terms of what he produced and what he did with that team and what Rijkaard was like at the end of his tenure with the club as well. So, yeah. And if you want to talk about building that team, I mean, again, go and watch the documentary because yeah, it shows you everything. Let's go to Jim says, will there be a ballot for Arsenal members in case they have a chance to get a ticket for the Carabao Cup final where the 1,000? I think so. Again, I'm not the expert on this. Go and follow Darren or Red Action on X. They're pretty good about tickets. So I think they went on sale yesterday, right? I'm pretty sure. £97 is apparently the cheapest lower tier ticket for the yeah. But maybe it's today. Apparently the club emails will go out tomorrow to season ticket holders. So there you go. Ticket information is on the website. So we're pleased to be sharing the ticket information for our Carabao Cup final against Man City. We have received an allocation of 31,939 plus accessible seating tickets for this fixture, which will be located. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that they may then get more tickets closer to the game based upon how much take-up there is from Manchester City fans. So that's price ranges, sales window. So all tickets and sale phases are subject to availability. Seat utilization criteria is based on the type of season ticket held and the number of fixtures, 23 or 19 game general admission season ticket. Seat utilization will be based on all applicable games for each season ticket type up to and including the Carabao Cup semi-final second leg against Chelsea. All sale windows will be online, apart from those of disability access who can also purchase by telephone. So, sales window 1. Platinum season ticket holders on track to meet the utilization target of 22 fixtures, and general admission season ticket holders have utilized their season ticket for at least 13 to 16 games or 13 out of 16 games or 10 out of 12 of the applicable games so far. This phase will open at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, February 10th and close at 1 p.m. on Thursday, February 12th for the purchase of up to 6 members per booking. Now, the other thing I would point out is I did see someone saying that if you choose 6 seats together and fail, all 6 tickets fail. So you're basically gambling a little bit if you go with a bigger group. So if they can't put 6 seats together and you're not successful, you'll be put into that ballot section of not getting them. So if you book tickets in a group seated together, you win or lose together. It's not a case of like 3 or 4 of the 6 could get tickets and 2 don't. You either all get them or none of you get them. So that was what was going around on social media yesterday. So sales window 2. All other platinum season ticket holders are on track to meet the utilization target of 22 fixtures. Of 13 of 16 and 10 of 12. Those members who purchase in phase 1 will not have access to to enter this ballot. So it is recommended that if you want to purchase tickets together, you must wait for phase 2. Unfortunately, we are unable to relocate any bookings purchased in different sales phases to enable groups from different phases to sit together. This ballot will open on Monday, February 16th and close at midday on Thursday, February 19th. For applications of up to 6 members, please note that anyone who purchased in the first window will not be eligible to enter this ballot. So yeah, it's it's very complicated. There is a third sales window. All silver members and remaining season ticket holders who do not meet the utilization criteria are in sales window 3. Silver members and remaining season ticket holders will enter the ballot for any remaining tickets. Successful entrants will then have the opportunity to purchase tickets on a first come, first served basis with 1 ticket available per membership. If tickets remain, the silver ballot will open at Monday, Friday, the March 6th and close midday on Monday, March 9th. Successful entrants will be able to purchase tickets from 1 p.m. on Wednesday, March 11th until 1 p.m. on Friday, March 13th. It's a lot of information. So I'm sorry and thank you for your patience for me reading through all of that. But yeah, it's that's the ticket situation. It's kind of mad. And it is also mad that the 2 teams get between them, less than 65,000 seats, which means that 15,000, Wembley capacity is 90,000? 90,000. So if 65,000 seats are taken up by fans, who are taking up the other 25,000? 25,000. How can it be that for a final in a 90,000 seater stadium that Arsenal have received an allocation of 31,939? How can that be the case? How can that be the case? Mad. Absolutely mad. Ludwig says, and now I'd wager to City spend as well, and the money added not available to transactions for the likes of Haaland and those two. D says, I'll have to fish about. There are various documentaries, mate. Okay, let me find it. Barcelona documentary, Graham Hunter. Take the ball, pass the ball. That's what it's called. Barca, the making of the greatest team in the world. That's the book, but the documentary is called. It's on Disney Plus. Watch, take the ball, pass the ball. Give it a watch. It's on Disney Plus. An hour and 50 minutes. It's really, really good. So go and give it a watch. Take the ball, pass the ball. M. Fawn says, what English Euro final would you equate to the Super Bowl? Would it be the Champions League, the FA Cup? It's tough since the Premier League doesn't have a final game. Who are you rooting for on a Sunday? Let's go, Pats. I'm not an NFL fan, but there is a game at Wembley, is it not, this weekend? Patriots and who's the other one? NFL at Wembley. Is it Jacksonville Jaguars? Is that it? I don't know. It's not my sport. I'm sorry. But in terms like the Super Bowl, Seahawks, thank you. So Daryl's not a Seahawks fan. What's the equivalent to the Super Bowl? I don't really know, because I mean NFL doesn't have like an international tournament, does it? You don't have. I don't know if it's done at the Olympics, maybe, but I don't know. But it doesn't have. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I genuinely, it's difficult. I'd say you'd have to say the FA Cup, really, because they're all of the same league, aren't they? They're all NFL teams. They're all of the same. They're all involved in the same competition. So unless I'm wrong about that, and there are like Northern and Eastern and Western or Southern conferences, and I'm unaware of that. But again, it's not like I don't know anything about NFL. I'm really sorry. I'm talking like I know anything, but yeah, I guess it would have to be like, yeah. I guess it'd have to be the FA Cup, I guess. But it can't be a World Cup because they're not international. And it can't be the Champions League because there's not multiple kind of nations. There you go. Tip says, yes, it's split into conference systems. There you go. So maybe the Champions League is, if you kind of count those different conferences or different divisions in different states. I don't know. It's not my sport. D says, nah, Tom, that's the Barcelona funded one. It won't say a bad word about the club. The Take the Ball, Pass the Ball is the documentary based upon Graham Hunter's book about Barcelona. So give it a watch. You've got to stop the conspiracy theories, guys. Martin says, winners of the Super Bowl are called world champions, but they're the only country playing it. US arrogance. I don't know. I don't want to go into that sort of stuff. D says it's propaganda. It's a I just told you, if you want to learn about Pep Guardiola and how his influence was on Barcelona, watch that document. It doesn't matter if it was even made by Barcelona, because surely they'd also big up Rijkaard and that period of time at the club. You got to make it make sense, mate. John says, what are you talking about? Aren't all world champions when they win trophies as well? Yeah. Yeah. If you win the World Cup, you're a world champion. Anything else, you're not world champions. You can't be world champions if you're only playing in a competition that is involved with one nation or like a small collection of nations. Like the Champions League winners aren't world champions. To be the world champions, you have to go and win the Club World Cup, which is a little bit of a strange way of doing it, because the Club World Cup, ironically, isn't even that considered a major tournament, ironically. Arthur says, if two Premier League teams finish with the same number of points on the final day, should both teams play a one-off match to choose the winner? Yes, definitely. Same number of points, same number of goals, one-off game, please. 100%. 100%. Right, that's going to bring us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for our mini preview ahead of the game against Sunderland. And we'll, of course, be reacting to that Mikel Arteta press conference as well. Have an absolutely fantastic Friday. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Go and watch that documentary. It's very good. And as always, up the Arsenal.